Hi, I'm Cynthia Gibson with the Idaho Walk Bike Alliance. I'm here at the state capitol because we represent everybody in Idaho who walks and bikes.
Having safe routes to school is a very important thing for the future of our kids.
Idaho Walk Bike Alliance represents all the communities of Idaho to the legislature and to the Idaho Transportation Board and other decision makers in Boise.
There's very few organizations that actually make the change. They make the legislative change, the ordinance changes, they promote those type of activities that really on the ground make the biggest difference.
When we live up here in northern Idaho and we're, a 6-hour drive from Boise, that's why it's ever the more critical.
Been able to respond to bills and advocate for change in bills that have made conditions better for people who walk and bike, and sometimes it's just guarding against policies that might have unintended consequences that make it worse for people who walk and bike.
I highly suggest that you donate to the Idaho Walk Bike Alliance so we can continue fighting for you and your freedom to walk and bike everywhere that you want to be.
I think it's the future. I think we're moving towards less car trips and more biking and walking, and it's a great time to be involved.
Number one reason was for safety. We just felt like it was unsafe. In fact, myself personally, I wouldn't dare walk across that road.
And so cars are going in and out, trying to get around them without hitting them. But when they get in big groups, sometimes after school, there's probably 15 kids in a group.
We saw that coming down here where there's a sidewalk and then there's a house without a sidewalk.
If you just look at what the traffic looks like on a holiday, a school holiday, when nobody's taking their kids to school, you can see how much less traffic there is on the road.
If we can reduce the amount of cars wearing the streets down by having more people walking and biking, we're going to save a lot of money in repairs on those potholes and bridge repairs later down the line.
How great it would be to be able to spend our limited dollars in a different way other than making roads bigger and wider for those 2 times a day when we have a lot of traffic.
We're really grateful for the sidewalks. It's been a great addition, and I think it's made a lot of difference in the safety and the comfort level, I think, of parents sending their kids to school.
Infrastructure to build a sidewalk is not nearly as costly as building a road, and it takes what is happening in Idaho. We have advocates all over the state really pushing their local elected officials.
Dedicated funding would be ideal.
We think short term often when we think about money, but we spend more in the long run if we're thinking short term. So for instance, preventive medicine like walking and biking can prevent in the future somebody going into the ER because of all their health issues. Safe Routes to School is one of the pieces that can make your community safer, more successful by having more people active, and so they're less of a burden on the medical system. The kids are better in school when they're more active, especially before school. They come ready.
When the heart's pumping, it helps the brain, and we got our most precious resource in here, and we want to have them being as prepared as they can be when they show up for school. So having safe routes to school is a very important thing for the future of our kids.
Hidden just a few feet underground, a historic waterway runs right through downtown Boise.
So exactly what is it, and why is it affecting your daily commute? Bob Anthony breaks down a hidden code of sorts running right through town.
As you drive through this downtown construction site, you probably don't know you're traveling over a bit of Boise history.
What most people don't realize is it runs underneath most of downtown Boise, underneath buildings, through intersections, and heads west.
To Ada County Highway District, it's a repair job.
We're repairing an underground culvert that goes under Main and 11th at the intersection here. This is part of the main line of the Boise City Canal.
But the Boise Canal has some history to it, and the story is told just a few blocks away at this sculpture in Words and Pictures here at 9th and Grove.
The steel and glass circles embedded in the ground spell out Boise Canal and trace the route underground.
It's one of the original canals that ran through the city of Boise.
Back in the 1860s, Grove Street was lined by an open canal called Jacob's Ditch, named after one of Boise's first businessmen. Electric streetcars were the main form of transportation for Boiseans starting in the late 1800s, long before most people had cars. The streetcars ran on electricity supplied by a generator along the ditch. Jacob's Ditch eventually was renamed the Boise Canal. Over the years, development has covered up and rerouted the canal a bit, but it's still used to deliver water.
The canal comes diagonally under this building here where you see the Meta Spa and Deviate Salon. As indicated by the hole we have here in the ground, you can see that canal is going directly underneath this building where the Safari Hotel is. It runs diagonally through the intersection of Main and 11th and crosses over to the new Royal Plaza building there.
At least now, when you're delayed by this downtown Boise construction project, you'll know why, and will have extra time to reflect on a simpler time when you might have been taking a streetcar to work. Bob Anthony, KBOI News, Boise.
President's Day was created to recognize George Washington's birthday, and now it's evolved as a way to honor all American presidents.
And you may not know the ties Abraham Lincoln has to the Gem State. Local attorney and former Attorney General David Leroy has spent decades studying Honest Abe.
And we asked him to share what Lincoln means to him and our state.
Lincoln was an humble man of very modest beginnings, very limited education, who evolved and created himself and recreated himself, rising to the occasion each time. Well, as a young politician, I had to go around the state talking at Lincoln Day banquets, and so I began to research the relationship of Lincoln and Idaho Territory, found that he actually created Idaho Territory, sent 15 of his friends and associates out here. Lincoln had fabulous ties to Idaho. First of all, he created the place. He appointed our first governor, our second governor, our Supreme Court, and other officers. He mentioned Idaho in his 1863 and 1864 State of the Union messages to the Congress. He used the mineral wealth of Idaho, the gold and the silver that we mined here, to help win the Civil War. And finally, there are even coincidences like on the last day of his life, he invited the governor of Idaho Territory to go to Ford's Theater with him and his wife that night to see the play Our American Cousin. The governor of Idaho was not in the box with Lincoln that night simply because Mrs. Wallace was ill and Governor Wallace could not accompany the Lincolns. In Lincoln's day, political division was entirely different flavor. Immediately after his election, states in this union began seceding or attempting to secede. They began withdrawing and tearing apart the union. Nothing that Lincoln said had caused that. Nothing that Lincoln could do could prevent that. Instead, when he was inaugurated some several months later, the nation was already shattered. Trying to put that together diplomatically and then later through a civil war that caused 700,000 Americans to be killed was an outrageous task faced by no one in history in this country. He became an icon, the greatest of American heroes, because he was assassinated at a point in time when he had achieved his greatest victory, holding the Union together while freeing the slaves. He basically saved a nation.
Well, as if you didn't already know, it is Valentine's Day, but if you're flying solo this year and looking for a co-pilot, maybe you need some high-tech help.
So we sent a hopeless romantic in our newsroom to find out how well those dating websites really work.
Valentine's Day, and love is in the air. This is a story about the connection between technology and love.
So on behalf of other curious and desperate single people like myself, see, no ring, I went to find out how love has been changed by technology.
This is Don Shepard, an assistant professor of English at Boise State.
If we think about it, the idea of finding someone to spend your entire life with and how many people are in the world, and I just think it's endlessly fascinating how people meet one another.
She wrote a dissertation about matching technologies and the cultural effects of algorithms for romantic matchmaking. Translation: how well do dating websites work? Here's her take on 3 popular websites.
I'd say Match.com, perhaps for a wider variety of kinds of relationships. It's people use it for long-term relationships, you know, looking for marriage, just for people to date. Match.com if you want to go on lots of dates.
eHarmony, unlike Match.com, doesn't require the user to do a bunch of searching, but it does deliver results after an extensive 300-item questionnaire.
I would say eHarmony in the best case is good for people who are interested in marriage and very traditional relationships. OkCupid is for people who are perhaps looking for more non-traditional relationship formations. They offer all sorts of potential relationship formations and also international matching, so maybe people who are interested in meeting someone from another part of the world.
The website OkCupid focuses on making the dating process fun, and it's the only free site she studied. In case you're wondering, Dawn is married. So how did this online dating expert from the hallowed halls of academia meet her significant other?
I met my partner in a bar.
Well, I guess there's always that. Bob Anthony, KBOI News, Boise.